Hello, and welcome to another edition of Critical Conversations. Let's see if I think I just pulled that off successfully. All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the show for this week. It is the 29th of July, 2020. And I don't know. I think we've done maybe about 9 or 10 episodes so far.
Wow.
Shows here of the Critical Conversations. And we are kind of, figuring out our groove here, figuring out what we're doing and how this is going to go, how this is going. We're coming up with these topics, talking to you guys, throwing stuff out there, talking to you guys some more. I am really digging the conversations we're having. I want to have a lot more, and I really want to grow this show. So, this is my beautiful wife and co-host, Melissa.
Hello.
I am happy, so happy. You guys actually have probably no idea how happy I am. How happy are you, Chris? Really happy that she gets to join me every week for this. Really happy about that. And, okay, guys. Oh, hey, Alex is with us too. All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna talk about violence, protests, uprisings, things going on here in the States that's getting a lot of media attention, certainly getting a lot of my attention. Been pushing back a little bit on some of this on social media, just a bit. I don't know that I have super strong opinions about this, but I do, but I don't like violence.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, from that springs everything else, I suppose. So, oh, thank you very much for my shirt. Yes. Canada Dry and Rye. Okay, cool. You guys are awesome. Love the comments coming in here. So I guess we should probably just get right to it. I wanted to, what did I want to do here? I do not have that story, so I will just say, oh, oh, I see what happened. I need to get over to my shows and log in. That's what's happening. Sorry, I had logged in. There we go. There we are. I had logged in on the call-in screen to see the calls coming in, and then the window disappeared. My bad. Okay. There have been a lot of protests. There's been, 62 days, they said? 62 days, according to a news story we read just a few minutes ago, coming out of Portland, where there's been that's been a real focus point, real hot spot for not just protesting, but rioting and violence, Molotov cocktails, fires. I mean, real efforts being made, marches that, protesters or rioters, and we'll differentiate here, trying to tear down the courthouse building in the middle of Portland, which I had to think to myself today, I believe is the same courthouse building. Well, actually, it's a federal. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure if it's the same courthouse building that Scientology marched around for weeks back in the day when they were going to the Portland Crusade in the 80s. And there was a big crusade because there was a legal case against the Church of Scientology, and it ended up in Portland. And Scientology ended up calling a crusade, and hundreds.
Of course they did.
Yeah, I think there were probably a couple thousand Scientologists there at that time. So, okay, but that's history. For now, what's happening is we have protesters and we have rioters or violence and, agitators. Let's call it that. And I said on social media, on Twitter especially, at the beginning of this whole Black Lives Matter thing, after George Floyd was murdered, which I agree that he was. I don't think that was just a cop having a bad day. That was outright murder. And I'm very glad that those 4 cops who are involved in that are getting the justice system applied to them.
Right.
But I said at the beginning, be aware of, look out for hidden agitators is the term that I used, because I knew that there were going to be a number of different groups jumping onto this, trying to take advantage of the fact that there are legit civil rights protests happening in order to foment chaos and division, and in fact, try to pull off what the right-wing, neo-Nazi racist groups were trying to pull off in Charlottesville, which was, if you listen to Daryl Davis talk about this, and he, to me, is an authority figure on what's the KKK all about and what are they doing.
Yeah.
And he specifically said that, the Charlottesville was about sparking a race war. It wasn't about protesting statues coming down. That was just the excuse that was used to make that whole thing go out of control and go crazy. And the effort there is to spark a race war. Okay, so if you believe that, and I do, and I think that the number of people who want to do that are small. Yeah. I don't think this is a huge, huge thing. I don't know what the count is on neo-Nazis in the United States.
Yeah, I don't think it's very large.
Yeah, I don't think the census figures on that are millions of people. I think we're talking in the order of magnitude of thousands. Okay, but then we have how is that mirrored on the left? Well, there are certain people on the left, and they identify as the left. I hate even having to frame this in political spectrum, so maybe I'll just stop doing that. There are other groups who are not neo-Nazi groups who portend to fight the neo-Nazis, and they have various names. Antifa is one of them, and all I know about this group is what I've had my own personal experience with them, which was I, on social media, was in direct contact with people who are part of or claim to be part of this nebulous sort of thing known as Antifa, or identify as Antifa. And Antifa, of course, means anti-fascist. And so you get these folks who gear up in riot gear, black, dress all in black, come out with baseball bats, come out with rocks, come out with weapons. I've seen them. They are here in Colorado. I've seen them in person. I've read news stories about them. I'm in contact with people who resist that, who have been part of that. I've got a lot of little weird contacts that inform me of things. But mostly I try to go to the news. And I've covered across the spectrum on this whole Portland thing and the civil unrest thing, Chicago, Seattle, but especially Portland. We have these protests happening. And I want to say right from the get-go, before we say anything else, I support the right to protest.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, big time. It's a constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely vital that citizens be able to, express themselves, not just through freedom of speech, but through freedom of assembly, which is also part of our First Amendment, if I'm remembering that right.
Peacefully. Yep.
Yeah, and of course, the constitutional right is the right to peacefully assemble.
Right.
Which is where things get a little out of hand, a little wonky, a little. And so none of what I'm saying tonight or talking about when I talk about my pushback against violence or protesters or that is directed toward people who are honestly, truly, and really out there peacefully protesting. They go out with their kids, they go out with signs, they march around, they have something to say, and they go out and they say it in large numbers. I'm totally okay with that. What I'm not okay with is when things get out of hand. And apparently, based on what I've read, now it's been 62 days, and a lot has gone down in 62 days in Portland. So I'm not going to do a blow-by-blow here. Lori says Milwaukee is having nightly violence too, as well as beautiful tributes to Mr. Floyd. And that's the thing. We're seeing both. And my problem has been that these are being conflated, that the two things are being, on both sides, I guess you could say. You have folks on the conservative side or the anti-protest, this is not really right that this is happening at all, folks, who don't want any of this happening. And then you get guys who are like, no, the protests are good. We want the protests. But then they seem kind of blind to the violence that's happening. And that's where I got a little worried. And this sprang from my concerns about Black Lives Matter, which I've gone on record at length about, so I'm not going to reiterate it all here. But I think this is springboarded from that. We go back to Evergreen College. We go to, history, and we look at how protests happen and how violence gets kind of included in that. And I just want, things are so crazy right now. Mm-hmm. People are so ramped up. The anxiety levels, the fear levels, the angst out there, it's almost palpable sometimes.
Yeah.
More so I see it in social media than I do with my own two eyes when I go out into the world, which I do on a daily basis. I go grocery shopping, mm-hmm. or I have to go out, or we take walks.
Yeah.
And we go out and we interact with people. We're not living in a vacuum here.
Yeah, we're not isolated.
And what do you see when we're out and about?
It's just pretty normal, but we don't really go anywhere near downtown Denver, so everything I've seen has just been pretty normal.
Yeah.
But I know on the news there's been other things, but it's like from what I see in my day-to-day life, I don't see much.
Well, exactly. So it's not like it's not like we walk outside in the sunny day and the world is burning down. But if you go on social media, that is absolutely the idea that you get. If you read some of the news reports and opinion pieces, which go all the way up to the New York Times, mm-hmm. you get this image of America's burning and everything is going to hell in a handbasket. And I have my real big problems with the media, but we got calls in the queue. Excellent. So I will get to that in just a moment. Just wanted to make the point that I'm disturbed by what I see on social media, where I see people supporting the protesters, yet at the same time they conflate that with the violence, and they are actually supporting the violence. Here's the deal. According to CNN reporting, which I'm selecting from on purpose because it tends to be a left-leaning, media outlet, even they were reporting, I think just 4 days ago or so, that 4 or 5 days ago, I think, that from midnight until about 5 a.m. on a nightly basis, there was these groups of people coming out after the peaceful protesters kind of went home. Mm-hmm. This is the picture that was presented. And these guys come out, and then they start trying to rip down barricades, Molotov cocktails, trying to start fires. They have started fires at the courthouse there. And basically are trying to tear down federal property, public property you and I are paying for. And I thought, okay, that's the crazy. That's nuts. That should not be allowed. And then when the local police are not allowed to go in and deal with that, because the mayor of Portland and the I guess the Portland police have gone through a couple different police chiefs in the last few weeks.
Wow.
Or few months, and the current one's a black man, by the way, who was being actively accused by some of these folks, these protester and violence guys, I can't tell which, of racism. Like, wow. So anyway, these guys are coming out, and then the police are not stopping them. The state police were ordered, by the governor, no, you can't go in there. Mm-hmm. So people are watching this happen, and it's becoming national news, international news. And Trump is like, well, this is ridiculous. And I am in no way, shape, or form saying that Trump's a great guy, because y'all know how I feel about Trump as an individual. But something has to be done. You can't just let cities burn out of control for 62 straight days and not do something about it. And if the local authorities aren't going to do it, somebody has to step in, and that's what ended up happening. DHS and other federal authority authorities, I guess I should say, because we had Customs Border people, we had DHS in there, other groups. Anyway, go in there and start trying to bring order, and of course this was instantly conflated to Nazis. They were called stormtroopers. This is a government overreach. It's authoritarian. I disagree. In this case, in this instance, with this circumstance, I disagree. And I think that if this were happening across the street from you or me, we would be absolutely apoplectic about why is nobody doing anything about this? And by the way, the collateral damage of all of this violence and rioting and stuff, where actual riots have been called by the police, has not just been at the federal courthouse building. It has been mom and pop shops. It has been retails. It has been, it's regular businesses. And I am not okay with anyone, for any reason, just going and throwing rocks through windows, looting stores, burning places down in the name of civil liberties. Because that's not...
Right, that's not how you do that.
That's not how this should be done, right? Okay. So I've said some of my piece there. So let's take a call. Jay, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Hey, welcome to the show,
Chris.
man.
Yeah, man. I have a perspective based on age. I am
Bring
over
it.
70, and I'm a great-grandfather. So my memory goes back a little farther than a lot of people. Not
Yep.
all. I mean,
Yep.
Now, Martin Luther King. We had black and white TV in 1963. I was a high school student. August 28th. That's when he gave his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., right? You know it from the historical record. I know it because I watched him give it.
Mm-hmm.
He said a lot of good things. One thing he said in that speech that threw a lot of us was, now you see, he was a minister of religion, so he had his Southern, this isn't racist, of course, it's just a description, Southern black minister way of delivering his speech. And he had a kind of a sing-songy Southern way of doing it. You understand that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he said, riots are the voice of the unheard. And I said, holy man, that don't sound right to me. That does not sound right to me. And yet, here's the thing. A lot of blacks took inspiration from his words, because less than 4 years later, in the summer of '67, we had race riots all across the country in the big cities. I mean, race riots. And they were blacks doing what we see on TV with the looting and the rioting and the burning and the breaking out store windows and violence mixed in with it. So this is rioting. That's rioting. That's lawlessness. That's lawlessness.
That's right.
And so there is a difference. And apparently they took their cue from him somehow, because they gave themselves permission to do that.
Right.
And this always disturbed me, that how King had an opportunity in that speech to discourage rioting. Instead, he just told it what it was and then let the people go out and do it.
And you're not wrong.
So, I mean, all these years later, and when you see these kinds of rioting all throughout our, recent and not so recent history, depending on what you think of as not recent. But, you go back 55 years or so, and off and on, periodically, we get this kind of a response that what King was really saying was, if you don't feel like you're being heard, go ahead and riot.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much more to that message. There's, that is a reductionist, like, let's pull out, a little quote or two out of what he was saying and take that and run with it as though that's the whole of our social movement. And I think that's where I have a problem, right? Because let me ask you this, because you did live through the 60s. You have the living memory of that. And the whole civil rights movement, right? And I was not yet born. I've talked with people who were around then, but it's, it's not the same as when you were, there. So I think that there is, the differences between then and now are stark and important. And I think one of the differences is, one, Martin Luther King stepped up and was a leader and assumed a leadership mantle, a spokesman mantle. He said, okay, I'm going to be the voice of this thing. Let's do it. And he put himself up there and he said, okay, we got a movement. This is what we want. We have a very clear idea of what it is we're trying to achieve. The laws right now are unjust. The way we are being treated is unjust. We need to deal with this. And he was willing to go to bat and literally put his life on the line, which unfortunately he had to pay the ultimate price, in order to make this thing happen. Now, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't on day one that Martin Luther King was saying, okay, everybody get out there and start rioting. Am I right about that?
I mean, it was a progressive type of thinking.
Yep.
The man they just buried, what's his name? John Lewis? Was his first name John? I don't remember. Another black.
The senator, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And he was, there in those days with M.L. King Jr. So, I mean, and then another man who gave his life was Medgar Evert. And Edgar, I can't remember his name now.
Sure.
Yeah. I had a funny last name, Medgar Evers or something like that. And he also was a black man. He gave his life too. I mean, they assassinated him.
Right.
But I think what we forget is when they call Americans fascists, that's a strong word, and the United States has never been that kind of a country. We have representation. The dictatorships in the world do not and never have had representation. That's why they're a dictatorship.
That's right.
And so, and because we have representation, it means we can change the laws because our representatives represent us.
Exactly.
We can do it, but it takes time. And, M.L. King apparently was giving permission, his reverend blessing, so to speak, on those who would try to speed up the process and become lawless in the process.
Well, I think that from my understanding of history, and again, I'm asking you here, my understanding is that came towards the end of his, of his time, really, of his movement, of his life, where he started, if I remember what I read about this right, it was, there was a certain amount of despair or a certain amount of like, Jesus, how much longer do we have to keep doing this before people are going to start listening to us? That sort of language started coming out. And I believe he even said, I think one of the commenters commented on this, that wasn't the full statement of, okay, good, everybody just go out and start rioting now. It was, okay, well, this is the voices of the unheard because we have been unheard. But it still was permission, wasn't it? Permission. Oh, yeah,
giving permission for them to go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm not trying to
otherwise
agree
he
with
would have. Otherwise, he would have been. He had an opportunity actually to tell his people not to riot, but to have sit-ins.
Yep.
Sit-ins. You can have sit-ins and other peaceful, like you said. The Constitution gives the citizenry the right to peaceably assemble, and of course, that includes protesting peaceably.
That's right.
When we get into a law and order question when they exceed their bounds. I think.
I think so too.
But anyway, I appreciate you taking the call. That was what I wanted to contribute because I had a perspective based on, having seen these things on TV and experienced the riots of '67. My heavens, that was horrible watching all of that.
Oh, bad man.
And so, but I'll go, and I appreciate it very much. I've never called into anything like this before, but you're a good listener, and I appreciate the dialogue. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Jay. All right, man. Bye-bye.
There's some demand for 7cam.
Yes, I saw. I was gonna put that up there. We have a couple of other calls in the queue. We will get to those in just a moment. Couch, thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. And you did not miss the 7 cam. And there he is in all his glory, our Cat 7. Hashtag 7 the Wonder Cat, if you want to refer to him. He is, oh, there he is looking at us there.
Aw.
Yeah, that's right outside our door, actually. The door on the left there, that's the studio we're in. So there he sits, staring at the camera. Our little slice of heaven there. Okay. Yeah, okay, good. As nonviolence is explaining what a riot is and not advocating. I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of different views about this stuff, but I think ultimately we're on the same page that, violence is a course of last possible resort.
Right.
I'm not a pacifist. I'm not a person who doesn't believe that violence has a place or time or use. There is a point where dictators, Hitlers, they come up and they come out and they start doing really bad stuff and they have to be stopped. And when they won't listen and when they've got armies behind them, then it's time to do something about that. But I think that there is a progression here. And we have seen with these protests and this violence, especially in Portland, which is what I'm going to keep focusing on, even though I know this also applies in places like Seattle or Chicago. It kind of went from 0 to 1,000 overnight.
Yeah.
And my questions are along the lines of, okay, what do they want? What is this all about? Well, there's no leader. There's no spokesperson. There's no list of demands. There's nothing. And the mayor, according to what I read, of Portland went out, tried to engage with these guys. They heckled him. They gave him a hard time. Mm-hmm. But he was out there trying to engage in dialogue. Well, good for him. And the list of demands included things like tear down the courthouse, defund the police, as in get rid of them. No more police. That was the demand. We don't want to reform the police. We want the police gone. And they wanted the mayor to resign right there on the spot.
Wow.
So these guys are not exactly, starting with their best foot forward. So there is no real parallel analogy here to Martin Luther King Jr., except to call out his name as though you are pretending, these rioters, these protesters, as though they're pretending to be on board on walking the same path that he walked. And I just don't think, I think that is the most disingenuous bunch of nonsense I've ever heard. If you're going to do a social movement, then it seems to me that there are things you could do to be very super specifically clear about what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Right. What is it you want?
Exactly. And it seems to me that list of demands made to the mayor of Portland, and this has been covered in the media on both ends, is what they want is anarchy. What they want is just tear everything down. And this goes back to, I get crap for this, but I keep going back to Antifa and similar groups. I won't just keep going to Antifa as a group because it's this sort of nebulous, sort of, weird, there's no leader, there's no organization, there's nobody you can go, okay, this and this and this, but that's kind of the point, is these groups don't structure themselves that way on purpose. And when they put out things like hashtag defund the police, that's not hyperbole for them. That's literally what they mean. Mm-hmm. They want the police gone. They want the government gone. And then they have either one of two things I've seen is either this bizarre utopian dream that kind of smacks of libertarianism that everybody's just going to sort themselves out.
Yeah, right.
In a country of 330 million people.
With very different opinions.
Right. And, or it is, no, we just want the chaos. We just want to watch the world burn.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go, wow, I can't get behind any of that. I can't support any part of that. And the thing that's been disturbing me about this, of course, is that there are people who propose to do so. All right, let's take another call. Mark, I believe. Hello.
Yes. I'm trying to watch you. I'm trying to watch you on YouTube, and it says the live event playback is not
reported on this client.
Oh, that's not fun. We are live right now. Oh, can you lower the volume on me in the background?
I have my volume shut off from my iPad.
Okay, cool. Am I on speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, can you take me off speaker?
Let's see. Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm. Just want to make sure we get the best call for you here.
Yeah, I'm on speaker.
Okay. Hello there. Okay, good. Now we don't have that reverb echo. Okay, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, hey, welcome to the show. What's up?
Well, I didn't know you guys were going to be covering this violence, but the angry gay Pope, I like to watch his videos because I think he's hilarious.
Yes, he is kind of hilarious. I don't.
And one thing that gets me is that the people that harass him, one thing I just can't fathom is how incredibly smug and arrogant they are.
The Scientologists?
And yeah. Especially the goons, the rent-a-cops. He goes over to this Mexican restaurant, and this rent-a-cop comes over and tries to kick him off the parking lot, claiming that he works for a place, and the people inside are telling the gay Pope, no, that guy has nothing to do with us.
Right. Huh. Yeah, angry gay Pope likes to go and sort of poke the bear. That's his form of protesting Scientology. Is he likes to go personally with a camera to Scientologists' property, churches, sea organization places, and ridicule them very loudly and very openly. And he's gotten in some trouble for that legally. And I don't find it particularly constructive because it just forces the people who he's confronting to double down on their beliefs every time. He's never gone and had a real conversation with a Scientologist on camera that actually resulted in something like the Scientologist changing their mind or, even reconsidering their position. They are defensive and they double down, triple down on their beliefs. And so I think it really just serves to make it stronger and firm their resolve to fight even harder against us enemy critics and stuff. And so that's my only real problem with it. It's certainly amusing to watch. And he's very, very good at riling them up. But I think ultimately it's a little counterproductive. But that's just my opinion. Just throwing it out there.
There's one a-hole there who, just as he closes the door, he brags that he'll never blow. And I'm thinking to myself, every time somebody's critical, they go run to your building and hide just like a turtle does. They just go inside, and I'm thinking, I like them. I can go anywhere I want. I can do. I don't have to live off a starvation diet. I can do whatever the hell I want. And yet every second of their life is controlled, and they still don't think there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I would probably have a harder time understanding it if I didn't used to live it. But it really is like you say. It is very, very controlled life. They do not have a lot of control over where they can be, what they can do, what they can even have. It's pretty bad.
One thing that as they like to brag about how many numbers, there are millions and millions, but yet one thing the videos I've seen, every time you get a big shindig, they got to shuffle people in like cattle from all over the country. They don't even have enough local people to fill the seats. They got to shuffle these people around from all over the country. They got to put them on these buses and
that's right,
and just drag them around.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's pretty wild. Hey, by the way, did you hear about the Emmy nomination for Scientology in the Aftermath for that last bit?
No. Unfortunately, I just bought a small house about a year or so ago, and I haven't been. And I have a TV, but it's not hooked up to anything. So I'm kind of in the dark about. About a lot of things.
Okay, tracking on that.
I can't. I can't afford dish or cable.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the house.
Yeah.
And we got a couple other callers in the queue, so I'm gonna move on. But thanks for calling in, Mark.
Okay.
Awesome, man. Thanks for calling. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Got a couple calls here. Steve, just going to give some insight about what you know, what's going on with the protest. Oh, good. Okay. Let's take this call from Chicago. Talk. Hello.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Welcome to the show. Who is this?
Thanks. I'm C, as you already heard. I'm from Chicago. Fairly new to this channel. Found you from the Scientology stuff.
Yep. What I spend a lot of time talking about.
So I had this comment. It was kind of ties in with what you were talking about with the whole angry gay pope thing and the harassing the Scientologists and like how it just makes them double down even more on it. When this whole thing started and people were kind of looting all these stores, I made this post and I got a bunch of backlash on it, but that's not the point. It was just about how what happens is when you do this, all the people who are kind of sitting on the fence or maybe even not against them to begin with, once their stores started getting breaking, what it just happens is it gives them this huge victim complex. And I think that's just, it's a really stupid long-term move because you're turning people against them. You're making people think that they're just out to destroy anything that moves, and it's not really a good way to get any support.
I agree completely. I think that's completely on point. And in fact, what we see is, a good chunk of the country right now is looking at this craziness that's going on in these cities and thinking to themselves, what the hell are these people thinking? And the conversation's no longer about the subject of the protest. It's about the protest itself and the violence of the protest and the disagreements with that violence and the problems with that and the issues that are trying to be talked about and brought up get forgotten about or don't get talked about because we're talking about this nonsense that's going on instead.
And I actually have, I'm going to say, some firsthand experience with that. Like,
Right.
I live in Chicago, very blue place, kind of relatively young. So many people are just kind of hopping on this bandwagon. And I mean, I know that it's well intentioned, of course, but it's just, you're seeing these people get so swept up by the emotion of it all. And it's just kind of frightening,
Yes, I do. And it's funny because are you and I on the same page that we would like to see civil rights advanced and we would like to see less racism in our country?
Oh, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
of course I'm against racism, but there's a right way and wrong way to go about ending it.
Exactly.
Right.
And so it's not a matter of we disagree with the subject of the protest or we disagree with what's going on in terms of speaking up against certain, systemic factors in our society that are putting people at a disadvantage. We agree. We want to see something done about that. And it feels like this whole thing, like you said, is very counterproductive,
Yeah. Oh, that's basically it.
Cool. Well, it's a great point, and thank you very much for calling in and making it, because I had not, and it was kind of sitting in the back of my head, and it's a good point, so thank you.
You are exceedingly welcome.
Awesome. All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and how we doing with our comments here?
Okay, you've got one guy that wants to unsubscribe.
Oh, okay. Be against government so patently false. Most are in favor of bigger government. Recent content so upsetting. Oh, Andy. Oh, that's a bummer. Why would all the protesters be against government? I didn't say all the protesters were against the government. Didn't say that. Okay. Well, moving right along. I think this is Henny. Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, Henny.
Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hi. How are you this evening?
Well, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. I'm okay, hanging in there. Thank you very much.
Cool.
I, of course, am very interested in the topic that you picked for this evening.
Thank you.
And I do believe in protest, peaceful protest.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's the foundation of what we stand on as a people, to be able to peacefully protest. I am not in agreement with any of the looting, and I think that's a separate issue, and I think it's also used as a diversion.
Yes.
But yes, absolutely.
I think on both ends.
Okay, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the right gets traction.
People,
yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And my point is, because the topic is violence in protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
It could be violence in humanity. Because are we not violent?
True.
Yes, we are.
We love boxing. We love hockey. We love MMA, wrestling.
That's right.
Okay? And I think it's a human condition.
You're absolutely right. Yes.
That we can't even help ourselves. It's just like an instinctual pull that gravitates, and that we find whatever commonality in it. Not that it's right, okay, or not that it's wrong. But it is a fact that humanity is infected with this violence as part of it, regardless what side, left, right,
that's right.
Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. Now, as far as Dr. King is concerned, I disagree with that man that called. I thought he was a gentleman, and he had his own interpretation, which was quite interesting. But I disagree because there are certain people, few and far between, that really do believe in nonviolence as a way of getting further in your life.
That's right.
And I believe that he was one of those very special people.
I agree completely.
Let us not forget that he was assassinated, and he knew it. Okay, he knew it. But that was not what he was there. He was not there to pull to pull everybody together to be violent. That's not what his point was.
Yeah.
His point was to try to end racism.
That's right.
And that was what he wanted to do in a peaceful way. Now, that's not to say there weren't others like a Malcolm X who believed in that as well, but believed in violence to go with it.
That's right.
Okay, but that was not Dr. King's way.
That's right.
That was not his way.
And in fact, if you remember, Henny, Malcolm X even changed his tune.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
At the end, right? He realized peaceful protest and violence wasn't that violence wasn't the answer, and he changed his mind, and they killed him for it too.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really something to think about because when I turn on the TV and I see all this flyer and it's incredible. I try not to even watch it, But when I see, peaceful protests trying to happen, and then other armed people come and start this violence.
Yep.
This is not right. This is not right on our own people.
That's right.
There has to be a better way. I
agree. And I'm encouraged. I want to ask you, Henny, because you're in New York, so you're at the polar opposite of Portland in terms of geography. What are you seeing in the news a differentiation between the protesters who are around during the day doing their peaceful stuff and the rioters and violence folks who are kind of intermixed in that somewhat during the day, but are especially coming out at night, right? Between midnight and 5 is what's been reported. Are you getting a clear differentiation of those two things, or does it feel a little like it's conflated, that these are the same thing?
It feels more like it's the same.
That's the sense I get too, which is what prompted me to do the show. Because I'm very upset that people are conflating these two things instead of differentiating that protest good, violence bad. Instead, what we're seeing is protest good, violence good. Violence justified. Right. Violence is rational. Violence is the correct response to this particular situation. And
exactly. Yeah. And I'm horrified by it.
Me too.
I'm horrified.
Me too. Good. Okay, so we're on the same page there, and I'm encouraged by the calls and comments that are coming in that we're on the same page on this stuff.
I'm glad too.
Yeah.
And I hope that, listen, we'll get through. We have to. And I just wanted to say that I listened to Leah and Mike's new podcast.
Yeah, what'd you think?
And I thought it was terrific. I thought it was terrific.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, I don't know, have you listened to them? Were you able, because I know you're so busy, were you able to listen to the last one?
I was. I listened I listened to the first one. I haven't listened to the second one yet.
Okay, when you listen to the second one, you let me know what you think, because I think that Mike was so scary. He didn't even mean to be.
Ooh.
He was just explaining, they went into, the actual, fair gaming and how it works and how they torture you,
Yeah.
And he was just, because he was the one who did it.
Yep.
So he, it was terrifying to listen to him. It really was. It was, and he, like I said, he probably didn't even realize, But it was mind blowing. It's fabulous, and
Excellent.
I absolutely adore them and that's it. So I'm glad.
Awesome.
And listen, the food for thought is about violence and the way that we are. We are. Know thyself.
Yep. That's absolutely right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. That's exactly right. And we're constantly fighting that. It's the same thing as when I'm pushing critical thinking, right? Because critical thinking isn't natural. It's not usual. You're not born with this ability. You have right? You got to learn it. You got to practice it. You got to constantly work it over. And non-violence is the same thing. It's in us to be violent when somebody disagrees, when somebody has a problem with us, when somebody's whatever, out comes the fist first, right? And we have to go, get it under control.
Yeah, it's almost,
Yeah. So that's definitely true. Cool.
I'm glad you think so. Okay, listen, peace to the people.
Thanks, Eddie.
You know what I know, really. And power to the people, and I love you guys. You rock.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Henny's so awesome.
Yes, she is.
All right. Let us check in with Seven again real fast. There he is, still hiding.
Yep.
Still sitting up there on his little tree.
His Tower of Judgment.
Yes, his Tower of Judgment. That's right. Oh, Seven, you silly cat. All right. Let's go. Now, there we go. Okay. All right. Okay. What are you thinking about all this? You've been a little quiet.
No, I pretty much agree. It's, I don't like the violence. I don't think it's right to, tear down small businesses that aren't doing anything wrong, Like, that's kind of what bothers me the most is the destruction of people that have nothing to do with it. I get being angry at the government. I get being angry at the police. And it's not right to be violent towards them, but I get what would lead to that. But when it comes to, like, small businesses and regular property and stuff like that, it's like, why are you bothering people that didn't do anything?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. To me, it's just such a wrong target. And that's actually an expression out of Scientology. But I don't know. I mean, if it's true, it's true. And if you, again, I want to be real super clear. It's not that I don't see when, that there are times when violence is actually your only option.
Yeah, absolutely. Defend yourself.
That's an option. I mean, if somebody were to break in here
Yeah.
and go after you, pretty sure violence is going to be my go-to, right? I mean,
right.
in a situation like that. But I think when it comes to social reform, social movements, I think Gandhi taught us the power of nonviolent or pacifistic, resistance. And, who are the people that we have really come to admire as the heroes whose names stand the test of time? Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., right? Even Malcolm X in the end. Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
I mean, the not, they didn't have to be nice about it. I wouldn't call Martin Luther King Jr. a nice person, but he was an effective person. He was an effective leader, and he was certainly a wordsmith. And he used those talents and skills in order to make social change happen. And there were lots of ups and downs during those years. And I know how dismaying it can be to be part of a social movement. And I'll stretch the definition into Scientology, because as a Sea Org member, I thought that's what I was part of. And I thought we were trying to change society. And it got really frustrating when it didn't feel like we were doing that. And sometimes you want to, beat up on people or something. But that is not, none of that is applicable to what's going on now. There are so many other options on the table. And I think we need to, push that we utilize those. Yeah, right, Gandhi. And so young people know who Gandhi was? Yeah, I don't know anymore, man. I don't know. I don't know what the young people do and don't know anymore. I can only speak out of my own head on that. I've misestimated the youth of today in many ways, good and bad. So I'm really not sure. I realized, that I'm of an age now where I'm not connecting with youth in the way that I used to. And I can't. I just can't. It takes too much time and effort and energy. I don't know. I haven't known what the #1 song on Billboard is in years.
Nope.
I don't know. There are whole stories that go across my social media feed about celebrity drama, and I don't recognize any of those people. I don't know any of the names. I got nothing, So I'm a little out of the loop, I guess. Old guy. All right. Somebody was asking me, and since we've sort of covered that topic now, and we don't have any calls in the queue, I want to address earlier. There was a comment from Robert Roberts. Chris Shelton, can you do a show on independent Scientology and specifically Andy Nulch? His YouTube channel is beyond bizarre and breathtaking, and now some other independents have disciplined him for violating his bail conditions and smoking Mary J. All right. Well, Robert, I'm not going to be doing any more shows on independent Scientology. I've definitely clearly made my points about that. In my content, in my library, it's there. I've addressed it a number of times in my Q&A shows. I've excerpted the clips from some of those shows, and they are on the Critical Clips channel. And Andy Nulch is somebody I'm not really going to talk about because I think he does all the talking he needs to do himself. And if you want to know what he's about, you can go to his channel and check him out. And I think after about 5 minutes, he'll bounce like I do, because I just can't pay attention to the guy or take him seriously. All right. And I was in touch with him early on when he first started becoming a voice. And we were, in touch. And he just kind of went into this land of unreality that I couldn't follow him into. And basically, that's what happened there. All right. So with that, let's see if we got anything else we should be taking up from the comments.
I don't know.
All right. Well, we do have, I will say the call-in line is still open. If you want to call in, it's 984-214-4154. And I would certainly love to continue hearing from you guys. I'd like to know if there's any other viewpoints on this that I'm missing or that I haven't taken up or that we haven't talked about. I think we've covered all the bases on it. I mean, in broad strokes here, of course. The historical, I guess I just want to say the historical analogies are plentiful, but I really, really want to make the point that I really feel they are inaccurate. This isn't 1773. We're not in the Boston Tea Party. You know, the United States of America was formed through revolution. That's
right,
true.
Right.
But what revolution are these guys trying to pull off, and for what reason? And what's the end goal? What's the end game here? What are we trying to do? If you're just trying to, if you're just going out and screaming and shouting and putting your voice out there, well, all right, that's nice. Go home, because it's kind of useless. If there's an agenda, if there's a set of principles that are being fought for here, if there are, specific laws that we need to be passed, if there's another constitutional amendment we need, okay, let's talk. But so far, I can't find any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking. Other than manifestos and, weird statements about how the police need to just be gone and extinct, and the government just needs to be destroyed, and we all need to start over. I mean, other than that, I can't find any sensible list of what is this all about. And so that's why I say, no, this is nonsense. This isn't the same as the Boston Tea Party. This isn't the same as the American Revolution. This isn't the same as the human rights fight of the 60s under MLK and Malcolm X. This is not the same. And anyway, so that's what I am going on about. Somebody's talking about socialism. I'm not going to go there because I think it's a lot more than a label. I definitely get your point, Andrew, what you're saying here. Why can't you see it's about socialism? I get it. But it's a little too reductionist of an explanation for me as to what's going on. I think there's a lot more moving parts going on here than just that. But that's just my take on things.
And this socialist doesn't support the riots, so.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, if Trump wins, the riots will turn to civil war state by state. See, I think that's somebody's like fever dream.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really where this is going, but I get that this is where I think some of this is trying to go. And I just got to say, I really hope that's not what happens. I'd really prefer not to see things that way. Civil war. I think that's... I think anybody who's going to talk to me about civil war, and I would love to actually talk to somebody about, if somebody actually out there actually believes we need a civil war now, I'm down for that conversation. But before I have it, I'm going to demand that the person who has it with me watches Ken Burns' documentary on the Civil War first, so that they actually know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because the amount of death and destruction that would come from a civil war in the United States at this point in time, given the armaments that we have and the weaponry and it would, and then of course COVID and the other diseases and stuff that inevitably would result from that kind of civil unrest. Man, I don't think people who throw around civil war have any idea what they're really talking about.
Nope.
Anyway. That's my take on that. I guess I have some pretty strong opinions on this, after all. But, it's who I am. All right. Let me end this on an upbeat and say, I hope that regardless of how the election goes, and I do believe that it's going to the left this time, come November. We've got 100 days or 99 days now until the election. We're really kind of coming down on this thing, and I think it's going to go to Biden. We still don't have a VP pick, so we'll see, and I'm not trying to be some big political pundit here. I'm just giving you my stupid little opinion. But I think that we're going to see, I hope that when that happens, we see things kind of calm down. I hope we see a return to science out of the White House.
Yes, please.
And I hope we see effective measures being taken. I was shocked to find out today that Congress, the testing protocols for members of Congress and congressional staff and people who are walking in and out of the congressional building on a daily basis, which is an international place. People are flying in and out daily and going into and out of that building. The testing protocols there are practically non-existent compared to the testing protocols at any major league, any major sports teams. testing protocols. In other words, they are tested better than our government staff. That blew me away. That totally blew me away. I thought for sure that the machinery of government, at least, was being watched and carefully monitored. Nope. And apparently, except for the White House executive staff, the immediate staff, that's an unwarranted assumption on my part. So we really need a bit of a return to science coming out of our executive branch and coming out of Congress in a huge, huge way. Yeah, I know. I don't believe the polls. I know. But we'll see what happens. I hope I didn't manage to piss a bunch of people off here. But whatever. I got opinions. I want to voice them, and I want to talk to you guys about them. So thank you very much, guys, for calling in. Looks like we might actually have... Oh, hey, we got a caller. All right. Hello.
How you doing?
Hi. Welcome to the show. Andrew?
Yes, it's a surprise for me to just stumble on your YouTube cast tonight. And I'm a little concerned.
Yes.
Because you don't acknowledge the fact that socialism is in the background of everything that's happening.
Fair enough. So let's talk about this. What do you mean by socialism?
Socialism means that there's central power control and there's a redistribution of wealth. And, there's a real problem in America, and everyone knows that. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The people who have commented, and I'm watching the live comments and everything about a civil war, they're correct. Because what's happening now can't continue. So what happens next? And I guess the problem I have with your show is that you have a conversation and you don't even try to anticipate what happens next. So I think there needs to be some truth told about, there were very legitimate protests about George Floyd and others.
Mm-hmm.
And those protests were co-opted by a group of people who were already doing stuff in Portland. Mm-hmm. They were already doing stuff in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
They were already doing other things. They exist and they're real and they're very well funded.
Mm-hmm.
And I own real estate around the country, including, I own some real estate in Portland and it's dropped 50%. I own some real estate in Austin, it's dropped 50%. So there's something going on here, which is a bigger conversation than I think you're willing to have, because I send you a couple of messages on the live chat about what's the real thing that's happening right now. And it's not, some people are angry and all that. I mean, some people commented civil war. Of course, civil war. At some point, societies get upset with how things are happening, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they get very angry, and that anger is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, it's not happening across the country. It's happening in, I think, 27 cities, best I can tell. And how does that get handled is the bigger question.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a huge question.
It's not about, let's see what happens tonight and everything. It's how does that anger get handled? And is that anger ill-placed?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to clarify a few things because I don't know that I've said anything during the course of this show that contradicts or in any way disagrees with what you just said.
Well, I think it's in some of your comments, my impression, okay, and that can be challenged, was that you had sort of minimized that socialism, is the actual goal of the riot. I don't think the goal of the riot is to do anything to change what happened to George Floyd, and there's a conversation about that, or anyone else. I think there is some bad cops, and there is a problem, and there's certainly a problem in the cities. But socialism is the money behind most of this. If one takes the time to investigate who's paying people I watched the Portland riots because there's no sports. That's my new sport. And those people are not there for free. They're not going there because they're getting paid to be there. They're getting paid to be disruptive. They're getting paid to attack federal targets.
Now,
and
that's a truth claim that I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
Who's paying them, and how do you know that?
I think that George Soros has been paying them for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that other organizations that are constituted similarly have been paying them for a long time. In the history of this country, we have paid protesters for probably the last 20 years. I think we knew about it for the last 10 years. And so you have to put that in context, that some people are out there not only because they're pissed off, which is cool. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're being paid to be there. And the Portland example, if looked at fairly, there's absolutely no reason that any American has any right or justification to harm a piece of federal property.
I agree.
It's just not there.
I believe that's exactly what I said at the beginning of the show.
So then why is this allowed to go on for 2 months? Okay, because this preceded George Floyd. I think you know that.
I think that there have been similar things that preceded that, yeah. I think the goal of this thing, according to at least some of these groups, see, here's one of the problems with this is that there are a disparate number of groups involved in the rioting and violence. It's not all one group.
Yeah, they're not all connected up.
So, and there also happen to be groups from both ends of the political spectrum involved too, which makes the paid demonstrators thing a little difficult to swallow as a single concept that, oh, well, they're there because they're getting paid. Because I know for a fact not all of the people who are there because they're getting paid. Some of them are there because they're stirring up, straight up anarchy.
Okay.
So I'd like to be more specific.
No, and that's the kind of canned response, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
And saying that there are people on both sides or from different groups and all that, there's very little evidence. Okay, in the history, the last 6 weeks, I'm going to limit to 6 weeks.
Yep.
That there are people that are out there that are white supremacists.
Yep.
Okay, it's happened twice, as best I can tell. There are people out there, mostly, okay, and it's Antifa, and BLM is, maybe it was sincere when it started. I get that, but it's been co-opted. Okay, and there's a tremendous amount of money that's been going in that direction. And my concern is the way for us to solve a problem is to understand the problem.
I think we're on the same page in a number of ways here, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. You asked me a question.
Okay, cool.
But I think the way to solve a problem is to first say, what is the problem? What's going on here? There are some angry people who feel America should be different.
Yes.
And they feel the difference should be socialism. And that's a very good argument for all of us to have. And I suggest that we have that in a less violent manner. And we say, okay, what if we decided to switch? But you don't have that argument by burning down buildings and looting stores and creating fear, because
Agreed.
Fear is the worst weapon in this country.
Yep.
Fear, COVID-19 it's all about fear. That there's a whole bunch of people that are promoting fear instead of resolution. And if you're going to run your show, and I'm going to bookmark you, and I'm going to come back and look at you, I'm going to ask you continually, and I hope you do this. All right, fear has been created. I don't think you'll argue with me or anyone else will argue.
No.
How do we stop the fear? Because fear is what's destroying this country.
What would you say about a solution that individuals such as myself can implement that are realistic and doable are talking about it and exposing that for what it is. Does that help?
Well, I think you engage people in saying, and it's kind of hard to do. And when you're off there, I think you could both sit down because I like you both, and you can say, okay, we can identify the problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's not the problem. The problem is not changing from yesterday to today. It's been going on for a while. It's been building,
Mm-hmm.
and say, what is the solution to the problem? I mean, I think that's the most helpful conversation that we can have in America right now is how do we solve this? I don't think Donald Trump's going to solve it. I don't think that Joe Biden's going to solve it.
No.
I don't think that politics in general is going to solve it. So there needs to be, I'm an engineer, by the way. I'm an engineer, and I think that you can identify exactly what the problem is, why these people are upset, what should be done about it, how can it be resolved, and where do we go from there? And I think that's really important. Instead of a debate about, why are people doing things and everything, I think we kind of know why they're doing things. And there is a belief in young people. And I run a firm that's a design build firm, and we have young designers and everything. They have different opinions from the older construction people, and they believe in socialism. I don't know how that happens. And I think that's a great conversation for you guys to set up some night that says, do we need to change the way America works? Is that what's going on here? Because it's not George Floyd. It's not and it's very unfortunate and it's sad, in fact, and you can call it murder. It may be. We'll find out. And it's not cops. There are some bad cops. I've met a few. There are bad doctors. I've met a few. It is really a national conversation that says, do we have the system in this country that is the best system for the people in this country, or should we change it or replace it or do something else with it? That's the conversation. It supersedes what's going to happen tonight in Portland. It supersedes what's already happened, but it's a really, really, really important conversation.
Well, all right. I don't disagree with you. I think that conversation is also intensely complicated.
Yes.
And all the factors of that conversation are a little difficult to navigate for your average citizen because it does involve, right or wrong, good or bad, like it or not, our government. It involves special interest groups. It involves corruption. It involves decades of, corruption. Influence, undue influence, civil rights problems, minority rights versus majority rights. I mean, there's a lot to this conversation. So when you say we have to figure out how to solve this, I kind of go, okay, that's kind of a tall order, man, but I get it.
Okay, so let me respond, and I think you had a good list there.
Yep.
It is not a tall order. It really isn't a tall order.
Okay.
There's a belief amongst some people, okay, that can be changed, that can be altered, with a very fair conversation about what's happening right now, and this is our system. Do we want to change our system? And
yes.
we don't have to pollute it with lobbyists and everything because we know that whole part of it is corrupt and everything.
Yep.
And we don't have to pollute it with other things. We simply have to say, what kind of country do we want to have? Do we want capitalism? Do we want socialism? Do we want some sort of hybrid? And what does that look like? And I don't think that's complicated. I think, in fact, it's relatively simple. In terms of what we expect of each other. And I think that's the most important thing I can tell you. And I hope you, after this, sit down and say, is there a conversation that can be had? And I hope you get a whole bunch of viewers. What do we expect of each other? Because I know what to expect of myself. I know what to expect of my family and my friends. What do we expect of each other? And in that context, what kind of government do we have? So it's been corrupt for a long time. I've been alive long enough to see 11 education presidents, and education has gotten worse the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So the politics part of this is not a solution. The solution to this whole thing is for people that you might reach, and you reach me tonight, who say, wait a second, forget about the politics, forget about the teams, forget about, because it's become such a left and right and yes and no and all that kind of conversation. What actually makes a difference? What do we do?
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this, because you're not. I don't disagree with the things you're saying, but we can't just push certain things out of the conversation and say, "Well, okay," but because some of these things are fundamental to the problem itself. And for example, our politics features into this because our politics has been the thing, or one of the key things that has divided this nation in a very, very significant way, which has been exacerbated by social media as well as a technology, where echo chambers become much, much, much easier to create and live in. So that's a factor here. And so when you say, okay, well, let's just figure out how everybody wants to get along, I go, okay, well, right now, people don't even want to talk to each other because they are so divided by these left-right paradigms. And this has been something that's been actively fomented by not just politicians, but academia and society itself, Hollywood as well. And it's just, reinforced with a megaphone across social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, choose your poison. So that also factors into this. And how do we solve that? It's not just a matter of a simple conversation. You know what I mean?
No. Well, okay. I agree with you 100% that everything's been divided.
Yeah.
Let me suggest to you that something that Einstein said. And Einstein said that ideas are solutions. And I think what we need to do is, instead of the team mentality that has grown in the last 30 years of my life, where I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, okay, I hate you. And they pick different sides, different issues, different things and everything. That has killed us. It really has killed us.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to do is we need to say, here's 10 problems. How do we solve them? And we need to let go. I mean, I enjoy sports. I watch the Houston Astros. And that's my favorite. I get angry at the other team and everything, and that's for 90 minutes, and that's cool. But in life, the way we are right now is that we have become so divided that people who posted comments about the next civil war, I think they're onto something, because we have got into two camps. It's almost like a tribal mentality that either one side or the other side is going to win. And both sides have good ideas. Both sides have good people.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides have solutions to problems. And how do you create that conversation which says, here's the problem, what's the solution? Okay, because politics, I'm sure you guys both know, politics is not doing that. Politics has one objective: getting reelected. They do not have an objective of solving our problems, because that's the way it is. Now, I happen to think that Trump is trying to do some stuff, and I think it's a little crazy the way he does some of it and everything, but he has made some changes. He has done some stuff. I have watched in action in the U.S. government for probably 25 or 30 years. So is that correct? Is that wrong? No. It would be better if there was a conversation where we all said, I'm not on a team, okay? I'm not against you because you have different beliefs. So let's figure out the problem and let's come up with a solution. And there could be 3, 4, 5 different solutions to things.
Oh, yes, very much so.
And that's the problem that I have with all these dialogues, which people come out and everything, and the fight continues, and yet no one says, "Hold on a second, education," and gee, it's very bad in America. Gotten a lot worse, and higher education is probably now the worst in the world in the U.S. And the cost of it has gone up more than healthcare, which is horrible as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do? What do we do? We keep marching down the street, hating each other? Or do we say, how do we solve this? So
Well,
I happened upon you tonight. I'm fortunate that I happened upon you. I got to say a couple of things, and I hope you'll consider it.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for calling in. I'm gonna suggest, if I might, in wrapping up our conversation here, that that socialism as a word, I don't know that it communicates what you want it to. Which is why I reacted against it, when you put it in the comments, because socialism is an economic system. That's all it is.
Gotcha.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not an end game. So it doesn't totally communicate, and I just wanted to throw that out there as a constructive criticism, because I know that's how we initially reacted to one another, and so I thought, okay, there's a little bit more to it than that, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know what you think.
Well, that's cool. No, that's cool. Do you believe socialism is a solution?
I think aspects of socialism belong in our society, and aspects of it do not. I see a hybrid, because we're already there.
Okay.
We already have aspects of socialism, but baked into our system. So, but to say...
You mean health? You mean healthcare? Healthcare probably?
Social security, healthcare, social entitlement programs. I mean, it's baked into our DNA at this point, but is it baked in enough, or is it baked in too much? And is how we've utilized it correct, or, does it need adjustment? I mean, these are complicated questions that I don't...
Well, they're not... one of the things that I've learned over time is the expression of these things are complicated. They're not complicated, okay? Yeah. And they get complicated because so many people throw in a whole bunch of different things about stuff. If you want to look at socialism for healthcare, look at Singapore. I'm a big supporter. Singapore has done a great job with healthcare. Cool. And there are other things that can be done in the United States that resemble socialism that can be beneficial to all of us. But I think that I'll draw a line here. I mean, capitalism is the opportunity for anyone in any circumstance, and that can be debated, to change their lives. Socialism doesn't offer that. And that's the big distinction between the two. So if there's a conversation, and I don't see anybody having it, and I think they should, do you want everyone to be taken care of, or do you want incentive? And I think incentive makes people better than they thought they could.
I think you're right, as long as it's not absconded with and corrupted. And I think that is part of why regulation is necessary. This idea of the free market and the guiding hand and all that kind of is a little bit of a fantasy land in America right now, considering, the lengths to which corporations and government have gone to sidestep the system, and not even getting into something like MLMs, which I'm deep in the middle of right now in terms of a research trail. So, and I don't know that people really understand just how deep and how hard MLMs have affected our economy and the economies of other countries. So I agree with you that in theory, a hybrid system between these two things and finding the right balance is absolutely a direction to go in. Melissa and I talk about this all the time. But it's, man, if we can't even have conversations right now, how are we going to end up having that conversation? And I think, if anything, I'm trying to make an effort in that direction with this show.
Well, kudos to Melissa for having a conversation with you. The conversation has to be had with America.
Yeah.
And the conversation be had with people who are trying to understand and contribute to the dialogue that helps prevent a lot of the stuff that's happening now, and it helps prevent, and it helps them understand. I can tell you that I spent about $130,000 to look at universal health care, and we looked at Singapore, and that was the best example. And in this country, if you want to say universal health care, you can't do it because the lobbyists and the insurance industry and the rest of them.
That's right.
So there's some huge barriers that stop us from making progress.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's going to this administration right now, but if there's a conversation that allows us to simply define the problem and say, okay, so what do we do? And there may be 3 solutions. I wish there was a way that America could say, here are the 3 solutions. I pick A, B, or C, and then we go with it. We see how it works, and we choose that. And we have the technology to do that. I think we have enough mentality for people to do that. But I would encourage both of you, because I think you're very sincere, and you've had a great conversation with me. I appreciated it a lot.
Right.
That maybe you can try to steer the conversation into something that's life-changing, because it's not happening out there. It's not, there's politics, there are nasty TV commercials, there's one tribe against the other tribe,
right?
There's lying, deception, there's all that stuff. And there is no conversation out there that says education has gone down for 27 straight years. Higher education has gone down for 11 years, but the cost has doubled in 11 years. There are really bad problems.
Exactly.
And then there's no about solving that. So I would encourage you. I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope we get a chance to speak again. But ultimately, we have to solve problems. We don't have to discuss problems. We don't have to discuss the difference between the 2 different arguments and all that. We got to come up with solutions. So my encouragement to you, and you've been real kind to me, is maybe in the future, let's head that direction. And you're both adorable and fun, and I appreciate it a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much for those kind words as well. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will talk again. And I invite you, by the way, if you're new to my channel here, to check out some of my recent content, because I've put up stuff about the cops, about training, about Black Lives Matter, about quite a few things that some of which we've touched on here. So you might be interested in some of that.
I'll do that, and I'll look for you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for calling.
All
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Cool. Those are the conversations I want. All right. One more 7 cam, you ruthless people. And there he is. Oh, yep, looking right at the camera again. There he is. All right. There's our 7 cam. We usually get about 3 shots at him during the show here. All right. Oh, yes. Let me turn this off. And there we are back. Okay. Yes, yes, commenter, I am definitely aware of the MLM connection with the Trump family. Absolutely. I am deep down that rabbit hole right now. Yeah, I do think 7 knows we're watching. He's kind of psychic that way. 7 the psychic wonder cat. Might be a little long of a hashtag though. Yes, I want more of those conversations. Thank you, Andrew, for calling in. I think that I think we got some complicated stuff out there. I know that, you know, it would be great if we could have a national dialogue about this stuff. You know, we gotta put out some of these fires. I think America right now is in this sort of state of emergency that's gone on for too long. Excuse me. and we need to get some of these things put out. COVID, for example, has got to get under control. We got people out of work for months now. We've got people stuck at home for months now. We've got stir craziness going on. I mean, we got some issues, and we got to stop living in denial about that and deal with this stuff. And this is why I was trying to say in a fairly upbeat way, even if I was a little off the mark, that I think that regardless of who ends up in the White House come, after November's results, we better get on board with science. And Trump's making some correct noises in that direction right now, but not nearly enough, especially when he starts endorsing this hydrochloroquine crap some more. If somebody wants to show me that stuff cures COVID, great. But so far, every single, reputable scientist that has anything to do with it says that stuff is ridiculous, and studies have been done on it saying it's not that way. Point is, not going to go on a roll about that. I'm just saying we need science to step up, and we need it recognized, and we need it pushed, and we need that vaccine. And until we get it, a lot of this is just so much hot air. So, all right, guys, exactly. Then we can get back to some degree of normalcy of a society, and then we can just get back to beating up on each other on social media on a daily basis and figure out how to rediscover manners and civility. And from that, we can then have those conversations that Andrew and I think both of us would like to see happen. And more so, we can see solutions being implemented. I hope that would be the case. Our system, let me wrap up with this, and then we'll wrap up the show. I believe our system, as a system, is one of the best in the world. I think that people, over the centuries of our existence here in the United States, have twisted some of our system into some pretty disgusting pretzels. And those need to be undone or somehow accounted for. And I'm talking about campaign finance reform. I'm talking about lobbying. I'm talking about the drug industry. The big corporation monopolies. I'm talking about government and corporation business. Advantage that needs to be dealt with. And if those things aren't dealt with, then I would see that the unrest would continue and things would only continue in that direction. And then the system, which I think can deal with these problems, won't be given a chance, and that will be the end of it. And it will be due to human nature, corruption, stupidity, cult thinking, and the laundry list of nonsense that we talk about on this channel all the time. So, just trying to do our part to push back. I don't know. What do you think, babe?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got anything else to add?
No, I don't.
All right. Yeah, compromise, That's where it's really at. And somehow compromise has become a dirty word, politically, socially, and we need to, that pendulum has got to start swinging in the other direction. And there's been too many people pushing too hard, too long against it, and we need to start rediscovering the power and beauty of compromise. All right. That being said, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming around and watching. Really appreciate you guys. And let's go ahead and wrap it up. We will see you guys. Podcast Saturday, Q&A Sunday. And I have another live stream next Tuesday. We're going to be picking back up with Christian Zerko. So I hope you guys will join us for that next Tuesday. All right. There we go.